Hello and welcome back to a new lecture. Recall that the principle of compositionality was there to explain to us the phenomena of productivity, okay? But this explanation runs into some problems. Let's take an example scenario. Take the example scenario here where you have speaker A and speaker B. Speaker A says, "I love you." Speaker B says, "What a wonderful day." Now, what is the meaning of speaker B's sentence? If we are to go by the principle of compositionality itself, we would have to look out for the word what and wonderful and day. Now, let's say we come up with our result of the meaning, but then take another scenario. Again, we have speaker A and speaker B, but this time speaker A says, "I hate you." To which speaker B replies, "What a wonderful day." Now, do you think these two sentences have the same meaning? Of course not, although they are exactly the same. Notice the words are exactly the same, but the meaning is totally different. So what's missing here? What's missing is a slight difference between what the sentence means and what the speaker means. So our theory of semantics must also explain the difference between sentence meaning and speaker meaning. Let's give a slight little summary so far. We wanted a theory of semantics that would explain productivity. Now, we found out that to explain productivity, the best idea we have so far is something called the principle of compositionality. Okay? Now, from our last scenario, we found out that the principle of compositionality alone will not do, because there's a difference between the sentence meaning and the speaker meaning. And so we have problems that we need to address. The first of which was a difference between sentence meaning and speaker meaning. Are there any other problems? Can you think of any other problems that might arise from the principle of compositionality? Let's take a look. Here's another example scenario. In the sentence, "I am hungry," what does this sentence mean? If we were to hear this sentence, what meaning would we understand? Well, it depends. Uttered by a middle-class person, this sentence would mean, "Let's have lunch," for example. Okay? But uttered by a beggar, and the sentence has a totally different meaning. In this case, it means, "I need some money." So again, here's the difference that the principle of compositionality cannot explain to us right now. Let's call this the problem of contextualized effects. We'll get back to this later. So right now we can safely add contextualized meaning to the list of problems that the principle of compositionality cannot handle so far. So far the principle of compositionality cannot handle the contextual effects arising from different contextual meanings, and it also cannot handle the difference between sentence meaning and speaker meaning. Now we're going to discuss a third problem that the principle of compositionality faces, and that is the difference between linguistic knowledge and world knowledge. Here's an example scenario. Let's say we're in class and someone says, "Please open the window." Now this sentence has a literal meaning to it, which basically is the meaning of the sentence itself, taken out of context. So what this sentence would mean is just that someone wants someone else to open the window, very directly. That's what we call literal meaning. But it can also mean that I feel hot. Now this, of course, is not literal meaning. We cannot arrive at this just by merely connecting the meanings of the individual words and how they are connected here. For this, you're going to need another type of knowledge. You're going to need world knowledge or encyclopedic knowledge, which basically means you need knowledge about how the world works. So imagine trying to teach this to a robot or to an alien from another planet. Now the robot or the alien would take this sentence and try to analyze it word by word and maybe come up with how these words connect together. But if a robot doesn't know the simple world fact that humans sometimes feel hot, and sometimes to become more comfortable, they have to open up a window because opening up a window creates a breeze of air that would cool down the human body. This knowledge has nothing to do with language, and it has nothing to do with linguistics. It is just knowledge that we have of the world that surrounds us. So far the principle of compositionality would lead us to literal meaning. The literal meaning is something that we can arrive at because of our linguistic knowledge, because we know how the language works. But again, we can't understand the true meaning of this sentence intended unless we also combine with it world knowledge. So let's call this the knowledge problem. Now we only have one more problem that the principle of compositionality faces that we will discuss. The last problem we're going to discuss is the problem of individual differences. In the sentence, I like coffee, the meaning seems to be quite simple. There really is no problem. Take as well the sentence, I like gold. Again, a very simple sentence. We all seem to agree on what these two sentences mean. But that's actually not a very good thing when you're coming to describe how meaning is arrived at. Because see, the problem is, we all understand what this sentence means, but we don't all agree what coffee means. We all understand what this sentence means, but we don't all agree what gold means. So, gold for you and I is probably something that is a metal, it's expensive, yellowish, and shiny. But to an expert in precious metals, it means something totally different. They would probably look up at the chemical makeup of gold, which we have no knowledge about. But at the same time, speaking with an expert and speaking with a normal person, we both use the same word, gold, and we both understand each other. Let's look at another example. Take the word coffee. We all know what coffee is, but very few of us can actually provide a definition for coffee. So for me, coffee is black, hot, bitter. For someone else, it might be creamy, cold, and sweet. But regardless of these differences, we still understand what the word coffee means here, and therefore we also understand what the whole sentence means. Now these are individual differences. If we can't even agree what coffee means, is it this or this? How do we expect to create a theory based on the principle of compositionality that would explain things if we can't even agree upon what the word coffee means? How does that happen? How does it work? If I say I like coffee and my idea of coffee is a drink that is black, hot, and bitter, and you hear this sentence and you try to make sense of it, but your understanding of coffee is creamy, cold, and sweet, how were you able to understand what I meant? So this, again, is another problem that the principle of compositionality faces. It is the problem of individual differences. And this is, of course, the last problem we're going to discuss. Now we are going to discuss in more detail the difference between sentence meaning and speaker meaning at a later stage. Be sure to watch part 2 of this e-lecture to find out about a fifth problem for the principle of compositionality.